Yeah.
You hear that?
Yeah. Yep.
Floor is yours. Take it away.
All right. So my name's Angie. I'm an alcoholic, and I do identify as an alcoholic. And by that I mean, for me, alcohol comes in many forms: powder form, pill form, liquid form, all the forms, rock forms. Yeah. So I am a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and um, that is where I found how to live in my own skin. But my journey with substances began at the age of 14. Prior to that, growing up, I learned at an early age that alcohol was acceptable and encouraged. My family drank, all my aunts and uncles at every Christmas party, there was always alcohol. And so, and my mom going to the bar all the time, I learned that, oh, alcohol is a part of the adult life. So that's what they do. So when I turned about 14, and had some trauma that I had blocked out resurface from my like early childhood. I That and some other things, I realized that it was easier for me to fit in with a certain group. Children go where they're comfortable. And I wasn't comfortable with the people that were going to church, and I wasn't comfortable with the people who lived up on the hill with all the money. But the people who partied, that's what I knew because that's what I saw growing up, right? And and then having my own depression and unhealed trauma, substances were a good way to forget about all that and feel like I could function for a little bit. Looking back now, I kind of think that was a way for me to survive without going to therapy and healing because that wasn't really something that we did back in the 80s or whatever. I don't know, 90s. Um, so substances helped, and they helped until they didn't. And you'll hear that a lot with people. But I started drinking, immediately got in trouble with the law, like immediately, every time. And I didn't realize that, oh, maybe I'm getting in trouble because I'm drinking. I just thought, well, I'm getting in trouble because these cops are stupid and I'm not a very good criminal. So I had a burglary charge at age 15, which is terrible. I look back and I'm like, burglary at 15? Like, that's just not me. I don't burglarize people. That is not what I do. But I was drunk and I went to my next door neighbor's house, and yeah, there's that. So anyway, lots of trouble with alcohol, two DUIs within a month of each other at the age of 19. And then again, not thinking that I really had a drinking problem. But looking back now too, I can see that I never drank normal, whatever normal is. Um, at the parties, I was always the person hiding alcohol so that when we ran out, I would make sure I still had some because, I didn't want to run out. Um, I, yeah, I drank until I either ran out or I passed out every time. And I didn't realize that that's not normal. That's not the way, like, these people who are social drinkers, that's, I just thought they were weird. Like, why are you only going to have one or not finish one? That's just so bizarre. Like, who does that? So fast forward, of course, I was using THC and tried some other street drugs and um, lost everything really quick, really quick. Like as soon as I got into stimulants, I lost everything. And I had more legal charges. I was feeling like my soul had been stripped. Like I literally felt like I was in hell. And I was pretty sure that if there's a hell, this is it. Like it's here. It's not like in some other place that people think, no, hell is literally here and I'm living in it. And I was trying to figure out, how am I going to stop? I don't know how to stop. Like I'm trying to stop and I can't. Try to stop and then I'd relapse, try to stop and relapse. And so I started praying because I thought, well, got to be something. Somebody's got to be out there to help me. And I did have some glimpses of hope. I ended up pregnant and knew immediately that this was God's way of saving my life because there's no way I'm going to use while I'm pregnant. And if I have a baby, it gives me more purpose and I can focus on being a mom, and got into treatment because I was pregnant at the time. And so that lasted a while, my sobriety, but without any type of a program and just thinking that being a mom's going to fix it, I ended up relapsing, of course. Um, I was drinking a little bit here and there, but then when my daughter was older, like I think she's around 12, I started taking Adderall. I do have ADHD. Started taking Adderall and it was amazing as long as I took it as prescribed. But being the stimulant addict that I am, I it wasn't very long before I was no longer taking it as prescribed, and I was using meth a little bit to supplement when I would run out of the Adderall, and then pretty soon I didn't need the Adderall, and I'm back in a full-blown meth relapse, crossing lines that I never thought I would. I was working up at Hill Air Force Base at the time and taking methamphetamine on a federal installation. I do not recommend that. Not a good idea. 9.5 years of going through the gate at Hill Air Force Base, and I never got searched, and they do random searches. And a month after I got sober, my car got searched. Tell me that that's not God looking out for me, right? So, okay, let me back up. So I'm crossing lines that I never thought I would, using in the home that my daughter's living in. I'm just found myself back in that place of hell. And I would go to meetings and I would try to stay sober. I would use sick leave so I could sleep and eat and recoup. And I just could not. I just could not do it. And I found myself one night, I had a gun, had a concealed carry, and I had a gun, handgun. My daughter was upstairs asleep, and I had my gun in my hand, and I just thought, you know, I can't live anymore. I just cannot live like this anymore. But I also have a problem because if I do this, my daughter's going to find me, and that's shitty. So now what? Right? I can't live and I can't die. I'm screwed, like literally. What are my options? And that was the night I knelt down and I said the most sincere prayer I've ever said in my life. And I just asked God to please help me. I cannot do this anymore. And up until that point, I had told my mom I relapsed. I called my old bishop from when I was going to church before and told him I relapsed and needed help. I was going to therapy and told the therapist I needed help. I told my friend, a really good friend of mine, I needed help. And people were throwing things at me like, oh, you should go to residential and, you should consider like all these things. And I'm like, no, I can't. I've got to keep my job. I've got to keep my apartment. I've got to keep my daughter. And I've got to do it my way. I can't do it all these ways that you're saying. So after I said that prayer, something changed. And all of a sudden, it was like this fog lifted. And I became so open and willing to do whatever it takes, anything. And if that means I give up my job, I give up my apartment, I let go of custody of my daughter for a little while, whatever it takes. Because if I don't do this, I'm not going to have anything. I mean, DCFS showed up at my door. I got my final written notice at work. I was about to lose everything anyway. So I don't know who I was fooling thinking I needed to do it my way. But my bishop at the time, my old bishop, he recommended the women's retreat house in Ogden, a very spiritual place where women go and work the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and cheaper than any treatment. Next to having my daughter, I can tell you that was the most amazing experience of my life going there. So my friend took my daughter. I took FMLA at work. and my bishop helped me pay the rent while I was gone. Plus, it was tax season, so I was able to use my tax return. And I went to the retreat and started working the steps. It was interesting when I got there because um, I thought I was going to go through that withdrawal again, where I'm just so tired and I can't get up and I need to eat. And none of that happened. It was like I didn't even skip a beat. There were no withdrawal symptoms. It was so bizarre and amazing and miraculous. Another thing was I kept seeing the word trust come up. Trust. People would speak at the speaker meetings and they'd talk about trust. We would read out of the literature and I'd see the word trust, and it just kept standing out to me. And one of the things that I struggled with was trusting God, because I had always believed in God, but I also blamed God because I was sober before when my daughter was young, and then I relapsed and I thought, well, how could God let this happen? So now I'm supposed to trust this God that let me relapse and go to hell again? I don't know. That's something I really struggled with. And when I got to the third step and I learned that third step prayer, that that was another turning point for me, where I realized, okay, God didn't make this happen. He lets it happen, but it's me doing it, and it's not all for nothing. There is something good coming out of this, and I just need to trust that. And so I can accept the pain and the heartache that I went through because I know that there's going to be something, there's something good coming out of it. And so I continued. I spent 62 days at the women's retreat. And there was a time during my fourth step where I almost left. Surprise, surprise. 1, 2, 3, 4 out the door. But I looked across the table at one of the girls that was sitting there when we were doing step work, and I said, I don't want to do this anymore, this fourth step. I feel like an even bigger piece of shit. And she just looked at me matter of factly and said, well, do you want to get better? I was like, oh, yeah. Okay, then I have to do the hard thing. All right, here we go. Let's just work through this. And yeah, I dove into the book and wrote out my fourth step the way it's outlined in the book. And it was amazing, the things that happened. Some of them are very, very personal, and I don't know that people would fully understand. It's kind of like my own spiritual experience that I had. But I'll tell you one, I had an abuser from my childhood come to me in a dream to help me. And in that dream, it was like I no longer had to be angry at him for hurting me. I just needed to turn him over, you know? I can let that go. So that's one. There are many others. Let's see. So I left the retreat and went back to home and went back to work. And oh, let me back up really quick. So at the women's retreat, there was a woman there who, and I love her dearly. She she said everybody that leaves here gets their feet knocked out from under them. And that stuck with me. And so when I left the women's retreat, I was like, okay, brace myself. My feet are going to get knocked out from under me. I'm waiting for it to happen. And nothing happened. And nothing happened. And life was just amazing. And I'm on the pink cloud and I'm like living the dream, and relationships are great. And work is great and everything's great. And I don't know, like, I can't really say when my feet got knocked out from under me, but I'll just say life happens. You know, shit happens. And that's a part of life. And if it wasn't for my foundation in AA, I don't know where I'd be today. Because there's a million reasons to drink and use if I want one, there's a million to choose from. And I've had them happen in life. I One of the things that I've also had to work through is like that guilt, the guilt of parenting. not being there for my daughter, leaving in the middle of the night and leaving her notes telling her I'll be back and in case she wakes up, like just stupid shit that I look back and I'm like, that's not a very well, no, I wasn't a very good mom. But one thing that she always tells me is like if ever I bring it up and I'm like, I'm so sorry, and she says, Mom, stop it. That's in the past. Let it go. Don't even worry about it. We've moved on. And I learn a lot more from her, I think, than she learns from me. But yeah, I hope that my hope is that like the third step prayer says, um, I hope that my story and what I've gone through will benefit somebody else in some way. And I have a thing on my fridge that says my purpose in life is to allow God to serve others through me. And I love that. I love that so much. And I feel like every day when I get up and I ask God to help me be what God would have me be, and if there's anyone I can help, please let it be known to me. It comes. Those opportunities come, and I feel like I'm aligning myself with God's will, and I don't have to run the show. And I'm not going to lie and say, oh, yeah, I live this perfect life of living in God's will because I don't. I have an ego and I take back my will all the time. And I have to be reminded, but that I can tell the difference on the days when I don't start my day out like that. It's a much different day. It's almost like trying to turn a square wheel. It's not going to turn, right? Or it's going to be really clunky. But as long as I'm keeping that spiritual connection, my eyes are open and things are happening. People are, I don't know, it just feels like I'm in the right place at the right time. Um, let's see, what else can I share? I feel like I just went through that really fast. Will, do you have where are we at on time?
Oh, we're good on time.
Good.
You want to tell us about what you do now, how you got to being a therapist and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, yeah. So there's another piece of my story I forgot to say. So, I did, so 2015 was the day I was given the gift of recovery at the Women's Retreat House. Um, the end of 2020, I drank again. And what happened was I got into a relationship and I stopped doing the things that work, which I knew from hearing everybody who relapsed when you ask what happened. Well, I quit doing the things that worked. I quit doing the things that worked. I was going to school, got married, not going to meetings, and I drank. And thank God it was just a few times, but I did. Now, the drinking isn't really what hurt me the most out of this slip. What really hurt me was carrying that secret for a year. I even shared in an AA meeting and didn't disclose that. And man, that dishonesty and keeping that secret, that was rough. It tore me up. I don't know why I waited a whole year before I finally um, was more open about it. I mean, my family knew, but I don't recommend that. I don't recommend keeping secrets like that. It's not it's not worth it in the long run. Um, so now what I do is I utilize the online platform for my meetings more than in person. For a long time, I was resistant to doing that, and so I just wasn't going. Now I'm like, hey, if that's what that's what I need to do, do it. I also wake up every day and ask, like I wasn't praying every morning there for a while either, and so I started doing that again. I read. I have a 12-step prayer book that I like to read, and Keep It Simple, and another one on codependency. So I read those. I work in recovery, and that helps, but it definitely is not my recovery, and it can actually drain me more than fill in my cup. So I've got to make sure I stay grounded in my own program. Yeah, I think that's it.
Perfect.